I'm in the middle of the Ardennes in Belgium. Why the fuck am I here? Who let me do this?
This was me a week into my first ever bikepacking trip, not far off the highest point in Belgium, having an all-round terrible time. I think the main problem was that I'm not really a cyclist, not properly. Growing up, my dad was always telling stories about cycle touring around Ireland on an old steel-framed Doors Galaxy, or through rural France with my mum. It always sounded incredibly freeing, carrying everything you'd need to survive on the back of a bike, not knowing where you'll sleep that night. So when I found myself with 3 weeks between jobs, I decided to finally try it myself. If my dad could do it with a heavy old bike and whatever passed for camping equipment back then, how hard could it be? I'd occasionally done a big day ride, but never anything remotely like 3 weeks of back-to-back hard cycling. The trip was so last minute that I barely had any time to prepare. My bike was a Facebook Marketplace commuter, and most of my gear came from a frantic combination of decathlon and whatever I could find second-hand. My two most prized bits of gear were an old post office issue helmet that my dad took as a souvenir when he left the postal service in the 90s, and a strange Heinz Baked Beans branded cycling jersey that I got from the charity shop. To give you an idea of how little prepared I was, when I loaded all my stuff onto the bike for the first time, its weight surprised me so much that while we were trying to wheel it into position for a photo, I accidentally toppled it through our garden fence, nearly injuring myself before the trip had even started. This probably was a sign that I'd overpacked. It was one of many warning signs that I chose to ignore. Still, the route seemed simple enough. I'd start by taking the ferry from Harwich to the Hook of Holland. From there, I'd zigzag down the length of the Netherlands, cross Belgium end to end, and then loop back through France to Calais for the ferry home. What could possibly go wrong?
I don't even have the right real gears for this. I've never had rain like this, man. Lightning just struck over there. Jesus Christ. Thank God I didn't try and do this yesterday. Oh my God. I'd have died. I'd have just keeled over and died. I think we've made it 5 minutes before checking clothes. Oh my God.
Your route is being adjusted.
As it turned out, quite a lot of things. In fact, before the trip had even technically started, it was already going wrong. My ferry to the Netherlands left at 9 AM on Saturday morning. It was the one part of the trip that I'd booked. Unfortunately, by the time I got around to checking, every train that could get me there in time had sold out. So, after finishing my last day of work on a Friday, I cycled home, loaded up the bike, and set off for Harwich that same evening on that same bike, which meant that my first night of cycle touring wasn't quite the romantic wild camping experience I'd imagined. Instead, it was spent in a pub beer garden in Essex, where they let me pitch my tent behind a gazebo for a tenner. Accompanied by the soothing sounds of people being kicked out for last orders, I went to sleep, eager to leave England as quickly as possible. The next morning, I woke up early, packed down my tent, and headed straight to the ferry.
Straight off the ferry, straight onto a bike lane with lights. Hook of Holland. So I've just been on this lovely cycle path from the port. It's not the most scenic because it's quite industrial, but the cycle path itself is absolutely gorgeous, well paved. It's gone literally the entire way along the coast so far, and I'm now about to swing off.
For the rest of the trip, I'd be camping, but I didn't manage to find any campsite with availability last minute near Rotterdam, which was the end of my first day's cycle. So I ended up on this website called Vrienden op de Fiets, or Friends of the Bike. It's basically a phone directory of Dutch people who like cycling, and as you can imagine, there's quite a lot of people on there. You don't get any information, just a phone number, and so I text a bunch of people in the Rotterdam region asking if anyone had somewhere I could crash that night. A lovely Dutch grandma took me in, gave me a night of conversation, and a lovely continental breakfast to send me off the next morning. After that brief taste of luxury, it was back onto the road, cracking on towards Utrecht.
Lots and lots of countryside. Still beautifully well paved cycle paths. And so flat. Everything's reclaimed from the water. So you just have these towns of like beautiful new build houses surrounded by complete like water, just floodplains. And they've all got little boats connecting their houses to one another. It's awesome.
I joked before about how much Dutch people love cycling, but it's overwhelmingly apparent when you're there. Every railway station has a massive bike parking area next to it, most of which are full. You'll see people of all ages and walks of life cutting about the streets on bikes. I felt so at home as I settled into my first campsite outside of Utrecht. I expected the cities to be like that, but what I didn't realise was that even a random country lane between two small towns, even in the absolute sticks, Even then, on the side of the road, you'd have a cycle lane. When you get to a river crossing, of which there were many as I went through Niemen towards Roermond and ultimately Maastricht, even then you'd be ushered onto a ferry and pay a cheap bike-only rate to get across. Rivers weren't the only unexpected obstacles though. I saw everything from sheep being herded down a road to a massive walking event full of people in army gear, which blocked seemingly every road that I needed to use that day. But these comical roadblocks would pale in comparison to what I would experience as soon as I left the cycling heaven of the Netherlands.
Look at that in the distance. Can you see? Hills. Here we go. First border. Brno, Belgium. We're through. Yeah, baby, border crossing. Believe all of the cliches, because I've just entered Belgium, and A, the sun's come out, it's warmer, it stopped raining. The cycle path's disappeared, now I'm just on a main road. All the other fellow cyclists have disappeared. And we're coming up the only and also biggest hill I've had to do so far. Doesn't look like much, but after the Netherlands, forgot hills existed, man. It is nice though. It's very bloody nice. Got a risotto bending machine. It's so cool. It doesn't even really look that hilly on the camera, but it does feel as though the route is sending me far hillier than it needs to be. I mean, look at all these valleys, beautiful valleys. Why can't I be in one of them? Why am I going up the ridge? It's just been continual ascent. So I've stopped for lunch. I'm approaching the highest point in Belgium. I don't know if that's how much I've got left or I don't know. I am shattered and I've just stopped for a beer and a coffee. I've been in my granny gear, in the lowest possible gear for most of today. We're making it. Do you want to know how many other bikes I've seen so far coming up or down? Fucking zero. Because they probably all have a bit of intelligence not to do this on one of the hot days in summer. But Malmedy is where the campsite is, so we're getting there. That is the tallest point in Belgium, and that is my bike. To be fair, it is absolutely stunning. It's so beautiful when you're doing it downhill. Finally saw someone coming the other way, and at this point they're the one going uphill. Said, allez! He had a very, very nice carbon road bike and no gear. Meanwhile, I've got my entire belongings, all my possessions. In its infinite wisdom, commuter and my route has taken me on a mountain bike trail at the end, and there's no way around it without adding like a huge hairpin. I think it's actually that road you can see. A huge diversion hairpin to get to this village where the campsite is. I don't think it knows that I'm carrying all of my earthly possessions. The moment I start going downhill, I just get to 60 miles an hour. Like, it just happens. I can't stop it. Well, I tried walking it, but that was also, it was just going because it was too steep. So, wish me luck, I guess.
Given the terrain, I didn't get any more footage that evening, but I did make it to the campsite in one piece. Well, mostly. A bit of my pedal snapped off, but that's just a few grams off my bike weight, so I didn't mind. The campsite had a special field just for cyclists, and I spent the evening chatting to a bikepacker on a mountain bike, who later texted me to say that even he was finding the terrain a little too challenging, which made me feel better about struggling on my road bike, with incredibly thin tyres. I got up the next day hoping for less gravel and less hills.
Now this is more like it this morning. Discovered a Ravel, which I think is just basically a long distance cycle path. And so far it's all downhill and through beautiful countryside. I have a feeling this may not continue.
It didn't.
After yesterday, I am written off, in case you couldn't tell. So I'm going to push the bike for a bit up this fucking hill. These hills are insane. And when you're at the bottom of them, you feel so weak. You feel like you can barely move, you're nothing. And when you're at the top of them, you genuinely feel like Superman. I feel like I could do anything. This is the hardest and best day of the trip so far. I just can't get over the scenery. That was the craziest downhill of my life. I was just up there, and you have to just bomb all the way down on this road that's twisty turny. Oh my god, I've never ever done anything like that. I couldn't go slowly, but somehow we made it, and the brakes might need a check, but I think they're still alive. And we're in La Roche-en-Ardennes, which looks beautiful, and we're supposed to be the end destination, but we're here. It's only 3 o'clock, so I think we're actually making great time somehow. Oh my god, that beautiful downhill that I had, not fucking worth it, because then after a quick pint in La Roche-en-Ardennes, I then had to put on all of the altitude that I just lost. So what is the point in that? Yeah, I get your very pretty Belgian village with a river and whatnot, you know, all very nice, but just fucking grow a bit. Just get a bit more elevation, save us all the fucking hassle, because, oh god, it's so hot.
At about this point in the trip, I started to completely lose my mind and start fantasising about the next food or drink stop.
Little Belgian pastry girl, and your hair is made of chocolate. Little Belgian pastry girl, and your hips are made of cream. Okay, it is tomorrow. I'm looking shiny because of all of the sun cream that I've put on. Jesus, I look shiny. I didn't make it to the rock and roll campsite. I did make it past La Roche-en-Ardennes. I made it, there were 2 hills after it, so up the massive hill, down into La Roche-en-Ardennes, back up again, level, down, and then back up again. And I got up the first one, level, down, and I just hit the wall. And I was like, oh my god, I feel like sunstroke's coming on. I feel like I'm gonna pass out. This is a silly idea. And then I passed a sign for a campsite, and I went, fuck it, and I just swung in and said if they had any availability, and they did. And it turned out to be a very happy accident, because A, I've already beat my target of getting to La Roche by an hour, and B, I ended up chatting to this lovely guy named Bill, who's a helicopter pilot, retired helicopter pilot from the US Army, who now lives in London as well, and is a cycle tourist. And he offered me some wine and cheese, and we had a lovely chat till about 11 o'clock last night. So these things happen for a reason. And then he gave me some breakfast, and I gave him some coffee. And we're now pretty much packed down, except for the clothes that I'd attempted to wash in travel wash last night and hung up to dry. Didn't in fact dry, so they're still quite wet, including these, which I'm wearing because I think that'll dry them off quicker, and because it's so hot that I feel like it'll be actually quite pleasant to wear some wet clothes. Talking to Bill last night, he has an actual touring bike, really nice bit of gear. We talked shop about gear, you know. I was telling him I was struggling on the hills, and he was saying the same. He said he had to get out and walk. I said I had to do it about 5 times. And then he, the next day, this morning, takes a look at my bike. We're comparing the gears. And he's like, oh my God, is that all you've got? And I took a look at his, and the lowest ring, like the largest ring, the easiest gear for me, was like less than half the size of his. And he had 3 rings, and I only had 2. And I don't know, he was impressed, and it makes me realise that it's bloody tough what I'm doing anyway, and I'm doing it on something that's not really suited for it. You know, I don't have a lot of the mod cons, I don't even have the right real gears for this. So, made me feel proud to have got where I have, and even less bothered about just getting off and walking, because when I'm struggling to even turn my lowest gear, walking is just a better option. And on to, hopefully, according to Commute, the last big climb of Belgium and of the trip really. Like I've still got some ascents, but nothing on the scale of these. So let's have it. Doesn't look too bad at the moment. We're already quite high. So let's see. I think it's about 150 metres up now. Let's go. Thank God I didn't try and do this yesterday. Oh my God. This was the remaining hill that I tapped out of between me and the campsite. Mate, I'd have died. I'd have just keeled over and died. It predictably got a lot worse than that initial bit looked. It's just like curvy, twisty, turny hill. But luckily, it's all wooded, which is giving me a nice bit of shade. And we made it. Jeez, finally. That was knackering. I'm so glad I didn't do that last night. And there is no view because it's so wooded. But you'll have to believe me. I'm at 560 metres. I'm going to sit down on that bench there. Oh, gosh. If this really is the last of the big Belgian hills, then it's kind of the end of an era. I don't know that I'll miss them. But I am looking for... I think it's just been tough doing 3 big days of hills in a row. Which is inevitable based on the route. It was flat Netherlands, massive hill section, little bit of hills and then flat France. So I'm looking forward to the flats again. Not to be dramatic, but maybe the best pizza I've ever eaten. So much for the last of the fucking hills. I've spent the rest of the day on pretty steep hills. It turns out I massively read the elevation graph wrong. Oh God, oh, cow on the road. So apparently we're in France now. I genuinely have no idea when that happened. I just got a text come through saying welcome to France from Vodafone of all people. I was so kind of up against the wall that I just wasn't even thinking straight, man. Out of Bouillon, so you come down a big bomber road into Bouillon, which is exactly like La Roche-en-Ardenne. You know, you just bomb downhill, there's a thing with a bridge and a river, and then you have to go straight back up again. And I walked most of the hill back up, but I was struggling. I stopped in Bouillon to sort of get my strength back, but oh man, this is tough. And it's supposed to thunderstorm, like now. So I can't really hang about that much. I just want to get in. I've got the tunes on, and I'm going to try and just power through and hope that most of it's downhill. But I've been telling myself that it's all downhill all day, and it hasn't happened. Oh gosh, man. This is hard. Okay, I made it. Breathe. I was very... hit the wall is the wrong word. I can't think of a word that isn't tilted to describe how I felt. But yeah, I was just like, I just want this to be done, just want this to be over. And like, I could have just stopped in Bouillon. That was the actual end goal of that day of cycling. And instead I pressed on. I need to not let things get in my head, and I need to try and enjoy it. And also just the threat of the rain, the hills, like there was a lot of things that were objectively not very enjoyable. So I'm not going to fully blame myself for not enjoying it. But tomorrow I'm going to try and take it a bit slower. I'm now on my way to town. I'm walking because I could have cycled in 5 minutes, but I decided I need a walk. It's been a while since I walked anywhere, other than up the hills holding my bike. It's nice to not have to lug something. But I'm walking to town so that I can get a bottle of wine and some baguette. Maybe some cheese. To actually make the fact that we're now in France feel real. Because I feel like I'm still in Belgium.
This was something I learned about myself on this trip. When on my own, I really struggle to set a comfortable pace. Not just in the cycling itself, but in what I do each day. On my own, I'm restless. I'm really bad at taking the time to just relax and enjoy the trip. I realised this whole trip so far, it felt like the landscape was my opposition, when the whole point of this trip had been to enjoy the scenery. So that night, aided by a beautiful sunset in camp, I vowed to try and take it as easy as possible the next day. Stop when I didn't need to. See the sights rather than speeding through.
And we're so back this morning. This is what I'm looking forward to for most of today. Flat canal, I think I'm following 3 different rivers or canals, most of which have a cycle path and are fucking flat. I think my elevation today is like 200 metres. Touch wood, the commute's not lying to me again, but oh yeah, we're back. That bit of lovers rocking their headphones, chill day today. Just checked my elevation and did a bit of mental maths while I was on the bike. I have literally climbed Snowdon on the bike every day for the last 3 days, because 1,000 metres is about the elevation of Snowdon, and some days I've gone over that. So yeah, it's the equivalent of climbing Snowdon while carrying all of this. I'm impressed again, and also dumbfounded by my stupidity in doing it all in 3 days. I mean, feels nice to be on the flats again. Yeah. Slept well last night, man. Conked out at 10, alarm went off at 9, I still wasn't ready to get up. That's a good amount of sleep. And this is more like we're only 15 kilometres in, and I've stopped for a coffee. I'm not even hungry. I've got I think I'm finally figuring out how to do this shit right. I have just made a massive baguette with local cheese on a hillside after having walked up said hill and pushed the bike. I feel like we're heading into the eye of the storm. Look how nice it is behind me. It's quite nice, huh? Look ahead of me. I mean, why are we going this direction? It doesn't bode very well, does it? Well, so far it's not been as bad as I thought, but now it looks like it's picking up. Lightning just struck over there. Oh my gosh, there you go. Jesus Christ. Well, that was quite hellish, but we made it through, and the skies are back, for now at least. Now that is a much better sight ahead than we're used to. I was a little bit tough back there, but thank God for music. Honestly, this trip up the high hills, in the rain, whatever, music's been a lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without it. And on this, because there's obviously no one else, because no one else is stupid enough to cycle today when it's pissing it down, and it's only a cycleway, I just had both headphones in, hood up. Very unsafe cycling, but in the conditions, permit it. And just grooving and just trying not to think about the rain too much, and now trying to dry out as much as possible, hopefully. The weather initially said this morning that there'd just be like an hour of really strong showers, and so I set off thinking, okay, when that hour comes I'll find a cafe. But then when the rain started, I checked to see when it would end, and it said it would go on for the next 3 hours. So I was like, well shit, I just got to carry on. But I can't wait under this bridge for 3 hours. So I was like, let's just carry on, get closer to home. And by home I mean a campsite. But now it appears to have stopped anyway. So the original forecast was probably more accurate, which means I could have just waited it out. But oh well. 2 hairs. Hey boys. Or girls. You want to race? This feels like a different day, man. It feels like a different country. Lightning, man. Thunder and lightning. Big time. Bloody hell. The thing is with this tent, once you're in it, you're basically in bed. That was lightning. And it is, 7 o'clock or something. It's 7 o'clock, but I'm basically asleep now. Oh my god. Wow. Check out how powerful this rain is. I'm in a thunderstorm right now. Can you hear that? It's basically on top of us. Like, I can see the lightning. Good morning. It is sunny. for once, it's actually quite nice. There's still clouds in the sky, but there are sections of blue, and it hasn't rained yet, touch wood. So, feeling a lot better this morning actually. Even though commute has yet again sent me down what it labelled as a well-paved road. It's actually not at all, but I don't mind walking and taking it. Excellent. Yeah, no, this is a good route. Yeah, and I haven't just climbed a massive hill for no reason, because the door is padlocked and barbed wired and looks like an airport, and the fence runs all the way on both sides, so that's great. It's shit like this view though that makes it worth it. You get so locked into the climb, you don't look behind you, and then you just look and you're in some magical windmill-strewn landscape. This is a new and rather funny one, I will say. I literally just arrived at the campsite, finished checking in, and then all hell has broken loose. It's been sunny all day, no rain. And the moment I go in to put my tent up, just craziness. So I guess I'm just waiting this out to then put my tent up, otherwise everything's going to get soaked. Took my chance and got it up while there's a tiny bit of blue in the sky. It's still raining. It's obviously got wet, quite wet already, but it's up, and hopefully the inner's not too wet.
The torrential rain at the campsite felt like a bit of a kick in the teeth. What was I going to do all evening? Another 12 hours in a coffin-sized tent reading my book? A little glum, I headed into the small town of Plouvin in the rain to try and find a shop for dinner, where I stumbled on the weirdest establishment I've ever seen in a small French town. The only restaurant in the whole place was a Back to the Future themed diner, fully decked out in props and costumes from the films. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was so out of place. Of course, I went in to get out of the rain, and it felt like the cycling gods had thrown me a bone. Not only did I get a massive Marty McFly pizza, but I also had the place to myself except for a few teenage first dates, so they didn't rush me out. Instead, I got to post up in the cosy diner, out of the rain, and rewatch the entire second Back to the Future film, which they had playing on a telly in the corner. I was starting to feel like I'd finally figured out this cycle touring business. Take things slow and you'll be surprised what you find. Unfortunately, by the time I figured this out, it was nearly the end of my trip. I wonder how many other hidden gems I missed by tearing through places, trying to hit a big distance each day.
Good morning. It's misty. The sun is sort of trying to get out. The farmers are out and I'm out. I'm feeling a bit sleepy still. I guess the last full day in France, if things go to plan, because I'm cycling to somewhere about 2 hours away from Calais today, and the plan is get up in the morning tomorrow and cycle straight onto the ferry. I was very intrigued by these two pointy hills that look a bit like St. Clee, and this one over here. They just look so sharp. I had a Google. They're slag heaps from the old mining industry, and apparently you can now climb them and get quite a nice view. How weird, eh? How weird. There it is, look. It's like some sort of Close Encounters of the Third Kind vibe. It's like a volcano or something. It's so strange to be in the centre of a city. And there's the other one coming in. But you know what? For an old mining town that in the 90s had, I think, the highest unemployment rate in France, I'm a huge fan. It's really nice, actually. It feels very down to earth. And it's also got, you know, a bit of a kind of tourist appeal with the Louvre, the second Louvre, which was really nice break from the road. Something I've not done till now is like properly stop, lock up the bike and go into a museum. But yeah, to be fair, would never have known about this place, would never have like looked it up and chosen to come here. But I'm very glad I did. Good surprise. I have now had 2 coffees, if you couldn't tell. 2 coffees in a window of about an hour, and creme brulee. So I am kind of pinging actually, which is good because I've got a long way to go. I've made a big stop quite early in the journey. I've got to say, this is one of the best I've felt sort of mentally since pre-Belgium, maybe the start of Belgium. I mean, it helps I've got a cracking lunch today. Some sort of couscous number, some nuts, some pretzels, some juice, and some leftover camembert, which is going to be very smelly. But I think also I'm just taking my time a bit more and enjoying it. And I can see the end in sight. And, touch wood, the weather's okay. It looks a bit cloudy now, but it has been sunny. This is the life, man. Look at the infrastructure they build for these Eurovelo routes. Not only the cycle path, but down to the sun lounges, man. Oh yeah, perfect place to have a Prince biscuit. Oh. Maybe I should have followed a Eurovelo the whole way. That'd be boring. So I guess this is how it ends. Not with a bang, with a whimper. This is the last pitch of the tour. And a great pitch it is too. I mean, look at that. It's huge. But yes, a brilliant campsite with secure bike storage, hence the lack of bike. And I will drink a bottle of red wine, eat the last veg curry and rice that has made it all the way from the UK. These things suck. And I bought way too many. And I'm finally getting through the last one. And then I will plan my ferry home. This is it. The last morning cycle. Can't say it's the most scenic. But this is us on our way to the ferry. I probably won't get much footage because I've got 2 hours to do a 2-hour cycle and I'm already knackered. I'm only about 45 minutes in. But let's go. I think we've made it 5 minutes before checking clothes. Oh my god.
Your route is being adjusted.
Fucking hell.
Of course, the trip winded up ending just as chaotically as it started. The route to the ferry, which I'd imagined to be flat and straightforward, was actually hilly and confusing. I got stuck in traffic on the way into Calais and had to channel my inner London cyclist death wish, dodging between lorries so that I didn't miss the boat. I made it by the skin of my teeth and set the fastest day pace I had for the entire trip. Once I was safely aboard and the adrenaline had died down, and got quite emotional reflecting on my trip and what it meant to come home.
Well, we made it. London is signed that way, and the White Cliffs are signed that way. I have never been more emotional on returning to England than I was on that ferry. The homecoming felt so much more profound. It's only been, just over 2 weeks, but it made me cry, genuinely, to see the White Cliffs. I was sitting on the ferry coming in and standing outside and looking at the White Cliffs just gleaming and thinking about home and Britain. And I don't know, for all its faults, man, it's home, and I've never been so proud to be coming back to it before.
It's a cliche, but it's true. It's not till you leave home that you appreciate it. I'd had an amazing first experience cycle touring abroad, but when I returned, the feeling of restlessness I had before leaving was gone. I didn't have this craving to up sticks out of the country and punish myself with hills and hard cycling. If I did the trip again, I'd try and do half the distance in double the time. I realised that I'd be perfectly content to just pootle around England, stopping for a scenic pint every now and then, and taking my sweet time. I learned that going slowly is a lot more important than going far, and I finished the trip empowered to discover what my local area had to offer, if I only slowed down and looked for it.